Just as general housekeeping, we would like to ask that people, if you're not speaking, if you'd please keep your mic muted, please. Yes. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, just to reiterate, for those of you that are just joining, this is being recorded. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to, again, add them to chat, do the little raise hand button, or just unmute and ask away. But I am Christy Spoon with the Oregon Department of Energy, and we're here for the Public Purpose Charge Schools Program and Energy Trust Program kind of annual outreach. And Christina, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? I'll go to
Sure.
this.
Yep. So I'm Christina Skellinger, and I'm with the Energy Trust of Oregon Existing Buildings Program. I've been working with K through 12 schools on the Energy Trust side for I think maybe 9 years now. So I work with school districts in all areas of Oregon except Northeast Oregon and Southern Oregon. Colin Podelnik, who is my counterpart, is on the call today as well. He works with school districts in Southern Oregon and Northeast Oregon. And then we've got someone on our team. I don't think she's on our call today, but Jennifer Blake, and she's new to our team this year. She'll be helping us with any lighting questions that you have and lighting applications.
Perfect. Tracy, do you want to go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself since you've got camera today? Yeah, I'm Tracy Richardson. I work with the Oregon Department of Energy and directly with Christy, and I'm the program assistant, and I work most directly with the schools with their reporting, but I do have my hands in a lot of the rest of things. Perfect. So most of you, again, all these names on the screen, again, you guys will see or lots of emails from all of us or have meetings with all of us. So again, we just want to make sure everybody knows kind of the school's contacts. And we do have contact information on the last slide for you. Go ahead, Christina.
Great. So Energy Trust of Oregon is paid for by the investor-owned utilities. And here is the territory map. So you are eligible for Energy Trust incentives if you fall within PGE, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, or Avista territories. Some of our customers have a combination of maybe Northwest Natural, but their electric goes through a local PUD. You would still be eligible for incentives related to sort of gas savings, so like boilers, controls, things like that. There are different ways in which we can kind of slice up what incentives are available, but as long as you fall into one of those categories, you would be available for some amount of Energy Trust incentives.
There we go. Okay, so most of these slides, a number of you have seen or heard us talking about at one of our presentations, but again, these are kind of key elements that I like to kind of keep in there for repetition, make sure everybody understands, and or some of those that are new joining us that haven't heard of the program. But so the Public Purpose Charge Schools Program also is known as Senate Bill 1149 Schools Program. I'd like to mention that just because Senate Bill 1149 was the original legislation that created the program, and that reference has just stuck. So you may hear of the program as Public Purpose Charge or Senate Bill 1149. They're one and the same. So just so you know that. But for the 1149 program, a couple key points. Again, the districts that are considered eligible are those that have educational facilities within PGE and Pacific Power territory. So again, the eligible facilities that are going to be eligible for projects are those, again, that are educational, elementary school, middle school, high schools in that territory. And the public purpose charge or Senate Bill 1149 funds, those are sent directly to school districts each month. And that will continue to happen until January 1, 2036. through the end of the program. So again, those funds are automatically sent directly to the districts. And then again, the districts are to pool those funds until you have done something that is considered eligible for reimbursement. And we'll get into all that here in a few more slides. Um, School districts that, or the annual percentage that you're getting or that amount is based on the educational facilities and the student counts within those facilities. So again, each district is given a percentage every year. Tracy and I are working with every district to kind of figure out which ones are in the territory, and then we determine that percentage. So that's how it determines your monthly allotment. And then eligible expenditures for the program. These are general categories, and we'll get into a little bit more as we go through the slides, but admin expenses, fleet and energy audit costs, fleet or fleet electrification, and energy measure. Those costs are also eligible, and then commissioning costs. So again, we'll go through a little bit more on that in a couple more slides. Energy measures through this program do have to be analyzed because we need to see what those energy savings are. And as long as there is at least 1 BTU of energy savings, then the measure can be eligible for this program. On the energy measure side, the fleet electrification is a little different, but again, for the energy measures, they do have to be analyzed. And Christina?
Yep. So on the Energy Trust side, we went through the applicable utilities, but all facility types are eligible. So it could be a school, it could be the transportation building, the admin building. It doesn't really matter. Energy Trust applies to all building types. There are 3 different types of incentives in the existing buildings program, and we would help you through all 3 of them. So, but standard incentives are, if you are installing one discrete piece of equipment, so you're installing a boiler, a hot water heater, a steam trap, you are putting in insulation. That is a very straightforward incentive where you just say, okay, I'm installing the boiler, I get X dollars in incentive. It's easy to calculate and sort of easy to move through the process. We have lighting incentives. We'll talk about a little bit more about that. There are a couple different ways to earn lighting incentives. We'll discuss that later. And then custom incentives. Custom is sort of a catch-all for it. Anything else. So we see a lot of large-scale HVAC projects and a lot of controls projects when we do custom incentives. For custom, we have to complete a little energy study up front that can give us an idea of how much energy you're expected to save in that project. And with that, we can figure out what incentive is available. So for any of these, I would suggest any projects reach out early before you start the project, and we can help you figure out what paperwork is needed, because in many cases, we actually need to know about the project before you start. Go ahead.
Okay. So again, a little bit more on the 1149 side. Senate Bill 1149, the maximum amount that is determined for each measure, we refer to that as the Senate Bill 1149 max reimbursement amount. And that is based on the measure life of the piece of equipment multiplied by the annual energy cost savings. So that just gives a cap for how much we can approve or go up to for that measure. The funds, the Senate Bill 1149 funds, are considered a reimbursement. Again, that sounds a little funny because you guys are already getting that money directly, but it is considered a reimbursement program. So once you've done all the paperwork, submitted all the final costs, we've done all the data entry, then ODOE will send you an email that gives you that reimbursement amount that you're eligible for, and then you can essentially transfer that amount from the account that has all your 1149 funds in it to wherever you need to move it to. The funding is, we can review and approve Senate Bill 1149 funds for projects that you're doing now, but that are spending some of those future dollars that we are estimating that you'll get until the end of the program. So again, if you only have, let's say, 20,000 sitting in your account right now, again, but we think you're going to get another 100,000, based on that Senate Bill 1149 max reimbursement of a project, we could approve up to that 120,000 because that's what we think you'll get to the end of the program. And then the reference here to spent out districts, when we say spent out, we're referring to districts that, again, have spent all of those future dollars that we think you're going to get by January 1, 2036. Um, the reimbursements are tracked by the districts. So again, in that scenario, let's say you only have 20,000 sitting in your account. If we approve you for a higher amount, you can, as a district, decide to either transfer the 20,000 at that time, and then you can either track or reimburse each month as you get that monthly allotment, or you can just do a transfer at the end of a fiscal year, something like that. But you are tracking those reimbursements up to that approved amount that we've sent you. And then for the program, we do have some annual reporting. Typically, you'll get an email each year requesting certain information, these electric bills for eligibility, utility data for eligible facilities, and the account balance at the end of a fiscal year from usually Tracy sends that out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on a couple more slides. And Christina.
So on the Energy Trust side, our funding is based on cost effectiveness, and that really is some combination of the cost of the project and its expected savings. So when we do our little energy study calculation, we are really sort of solving for that cost effectiveness. And incentives are paid at the completion of the project. So you submit your final invoice. We usually do sort of a post-install verification. So we go out to the site, take a look at to verify the installation, and then we pay cut a check and that's mailed to you. Go ahead, Christy.
Okay, so there's a couple slides in here that are a little bit newer. These aren't necessarily new to the program, but we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the Senate Bill 1149 admin expenses that can be requested. So again, some of those reporting requirements that I mentioned, essentially those are tasks that a school district has to accomplish each year. And so again, if the district would like to request reimbursement for either staff time, or again, if you hire a firm that does this for you, those kind of tasks are things that you can essentially request reimbursement. Now, you do have to submit a form to ODOE first that gives us the time frame and the maximum amount for those tasks that you're going to be requesting, things like that. And then once it's done, you request reimbursement for the tasks that are finished. So just want to keep that or mention that for those that might need to charge a little bit for maybe some energy analysis or any of that kind of stuff. Again, was there a question? Oh, okay. Anyway, so there's, again, if you're doing energy usage reporting, and we reference, again, if you're entering it in the schools database or working to enter it in the portfolio manager system, any of those tasks. But again, just reach out to ODOE and we'll get you the form and I can answer any questions that you have on that. Senate Bill 1149 program trainings. So again, we like to kind of reiterate that there are some trainings that can be requested through the program. And we have one example, essentially, building operator certification, which is a training that could be offered to some facility staff that will help them understand how to save energy in the schools and or maintain those energy savings in the schools. Again, we have a training application form. So just reach out to us if you're interested in requesting that. And then we'll get you the form and help you with any questions that you have. Okay, Senate Bill 1149 audits or fleet audits, zero emissions vehicles and chargers. Again, we kind of keep this in here as a reference. There's some transportation folks that got invited. Again, part of this is these are potentially eligible, or they are eligible for the program. It's just we have these kind of maximum or up to amounts that we can approve based on what you're looking at. But these amounts, we also do need to look at your school district and how much money we think you're going to get, because let's say for an electric school bus, we can approve up to 300,000 for a bus once you've done a few part of the paperwork process. But if you're a smaller district, you may not even have 300,000 that's available through the end of the program. So again, these are kind of those up to amounts. And again, we can only approve up to 100% or these maximum amounts. So we have to consider any grant funds or incentives or any of that kind of stuff along with that Senate Bill 1149 funds. We just can't exceed that 100% between all funds that are contributed. But again, we have a fleet audit template on our website and the forms. So just reach out to me if and or Tracy if you have any questions or want to get those forms, and we'll help you with that. Okay, Christina.
Um, so here's a little overview of some of our incentives for this year. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is just sort of a list of the ones that school districts tend to take advantage of, but there are others. So in general, I would say most of my districts will just send me a quick email and say, hey, does this qualify? And I can either say, yep, and here's what the requirements are, the incentive, or I'll say, oh, no, thanks for sending, keep them coming. So it's always good to sort of reach out and I can let you know what incentives are, what the requirements are, all those kinds of things. Do a quick check for you. So some of the highlights, steam traps. So I have seen a lot of steam trap projects, if you have steam, where these steam trap projects are paid for entirely by the Energy Trust incentive. I've also seen that for pipe insulation. So if you have any exposed pipe, again, I've seen projects where it's been 100% paid for by the Energy Trust incentive. Roof insulation is a great one. So it's an easy one to get. So if you're re-roofing any of your buildings, and your roofs have had water damage, which I've not seen a school that didn't. So in those cases, they might be eligible for our incentive. Roof insulation is easy, and I think I've given, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on roof insulation. The larger the roof, it's calculated on a per square foot basis. It can be significant. Was there a question about roof insulation that I just saw? I just want to make sure
There's a question that
oh,
says if
yeah,
requirements can be met. Yeah.
yeah, if the requirements are met, you have 90 days to complete the application, and that can be extended sometimes up to 180 days. So if you do have a project that was recently completed, please send it our way, and we can try to get the application in. So the rule is 90 days after sort of the final invoice or when the project was completed, but we can potentially do up to 180 days depending on the circumstance. So feel free to reach out with projects. There's also wall insulation. That's one we get sometimes. We have boiler incentives. Boiler and hot water heaters are like an everyday occurrence. So those are incentives that are readily available. The boilers tend to be good ones. And then we have some of our custom projects. So controls, HVAC, they can cover up to 90% of the project costs. I would say those are the ones that we have to do the little energy study to figure out what the savings are and the costs, and then we can figure out what our incentive is. Um, I've seen large incentives for this. So last year was my largest incentive I've ever in the 9 years given to anyone. It was a controls project, and it was $650,000, something like that. That doesn't happen every time, but if you don't engage with us, you just don't know what's going to happen with those incentives. So they can be quite significant. Retro commissioning. Retro commissioning, this program is my favorite, I think, of all the incentives. It's for folks that aren't upgrading their control system or can't do that at this point, but they maybe their equipment isn't talking to their control system or schedules and set points are off. We can have an engineer go out and do a little study to figure out what we can do in terms of the scope of the project as well as the energy savings and the incentive. And so for retro commissioning, I have seen most of them go up to that 90% cap of project costs. So it's a really good project to look at. Any type of kitchen equipment, hood vents, dishwashers, ovens, food conveyors, they all fall into Energy Trust category. So feel free to reach out if you have replaced any kitchen equipment. Anything related to a pool. It says pool covers here, but really pool heaters, pool covers, anything like that. We actually have really good incentives for pools. I've seen some pretty significant incentives for pools. The other thing that's not on here that I missed adding was heat pumps. So we have a lot of school districts installing heat pumps nowadays, and we have now a prescriptive or standard incentive for that. So if you install a certain heat pump, you'll get X dollars in incentive. So if you have any of those types of projects, feel free to reach out.
Tracy, did you?
Christina, we
Yeah.
did have a question here in chat. It says,
Yes.
is this only PGE buildings? We have PGE and BPA.
Yes. So no, if you have Northwest Natural buildings, folks that are, or buildings that are in Northwest Natural territory, and those would qualify for some of these incentives. The exception is if you've got BPA on the electric side, then you wouldn't be eligible for our lighting incentives.
Okay. Did you have anything else on that one? I just want to make sure I don't.
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's it for
That
me.
covers it. And Colin
There.
has also added some comments in, excuse me, in the chat that also are targeted for that as well.
Perfect.
Sounds good. For lighting, we have two different types of incentives for lighting. We have our standard incentive, we call it our downstream incentive offer, and that's where when you've got a larger scale lighting projects, larger scale lighting with controls, those kinds of things. We fill out what's called a lighting tool, and your contractor can complete that. We can help you complete that. We can complete it for you. And basically, you put in what your existing lights look like, what the new lights look like, and it'll identify what the incentives are. And I should have said this, for any of these projects, whether it's lighting, standard, custom, as long as you're working with us on your application, we send all of that over to you to ODO so that you can tap into both the Energy Trust incentives and SB 1149 funding using just our paperwork here on the Energy Trust side. So want to make that aware. So anytime you're working with us, you really have the ability to tap into both those funding streams. Next one. Midstream lighting. So this is if you're buying a dozen lights. You're buying lights for a certain area. Maybe it's a smaller area, or you have smaller maintenance projects. If you go midstream, so that's going to any of the distributors. There's Platt, North Coast. There's a list of distributors actually available for this. And you go and you ask them for the Downstream Energy Trust of Oregon offer, or just the Energy Trust lighting. They'll sell you those lights over the counter at the Energy Trust discount. So they do all the paperwork on the back end. They work with us to get reimbursed for that rebate, but you just have to go to the counter and buy the lights, and it'll be at the discount. So it's a pretty easy, great deal.
So just one little note on this, on midstream process. So Energy Trust, again, will send, once they've collected all that information, they'll send all of that through to ODO through a kind of a monthly report. But if a school district wants to be able to claim your labor costs, whether you've hired somebody or you're doing in-house labor, if you want to charge labor costs, or if there's any extra little bit of cost that wasn't covered with the instant discount, and you want to claim those through 1149, then you need to reach out to ODO, to me or Tracy, and just let us know that you're looking at wanting to claim 1149 funds, and then send us those labor cost invoices and stuff so that we can review it. These ones, there's quite a lot of school districts utilizing this kind of method, and so that information all gets submitted in a report, but we're not going through them unless a school district reaches out and says that you guys want to claim 1149 funds. So just let us know. Okay, so just another slide talking about some different kind of reporting requirements. I mentioned again that one of the reporting requirements is energy use reporting. So again, one thing for goal for me this year is to make sure that I'm connecting with all the 1149 districts to make sure that everybody has heard the reference of Building Performance Standards, or BPS. Again, BPS and 1149, we both have energy use reporting requirements. And again, BPS is a little bit newer, so they're trying to get the information out there. But I want to make sure everybody's aware of it, or have heard of it. But there are some differences between the reporting aspects and what's reported and time frame. For 1149 schools program, we do ask for monthly energy data for all of your eligible facilities submitted each fiscal year. And that can either be submitted to the school's database, if you're submitting it in a spreadsheet by email to Tracy or I, or we are working with school districts now in, if you're going to report energy data in Portfolio Manager for BPS, because that is kind of one of their tools for reporting that data. If you want to switch and kind of work through that system, then again, you can work with Tracy and I. We just need to make sure that we either get access to that data, or again, you're kind of exporting it and sending it to us as a spreadsheet, so that we can get that data for our requirements. But I will say we did and I should say BPS did a webinar. I just kind of said, hey, hello. But there was a webinar that went through all the building kind of tiers, some energy reporting, qualified staff, all the stuff for BPS, but focused on K through 12 schools. And we have the recording. Here's a link, but it is on our website, along with the PowerPoint. So again, it would be good to check it out if this is the first time you're hearing it. Check out the webinar and the PowerPoint. The deadlines for some of the reporting is out there a little ways, but again, it's just good to be aware. So, okay, Christina.
So as I mentioned before, anytime you're working with our Colin or myself or Jennifer, all of our Energy Trust documents are sent over to ODOE on your behalf. And so you're able to tap into both. So in this case, this is sort of just an overview of the program briefly. So let's say you did a controls upgrade. You would talk to us about and say, hey, Christina, we're doing a controls project. I would put together the form for you, you'd sign it, and then we would do a little energy study on the project. We would come back to you with an overview of called a funding summary of like, here's your control project, here's how much we think it was going to cost, here's the estimated energy trust incentive, and here's how much you would get an SB 1149. So you have a really good understanding of what the funding looks like from both the programs. Then you move forward the project. Once you're done with the project, you submit your invoice, and then through that sort of approval process, you'll end up getting a check from Energy Trust of Oregon, and then you'll receive an email from Christy that approves your project. Go ahead.
Okay, do you want to walk through this one, Christina?
Sure. And so here's a couple of examples of what the funding looks like. So in this case, you've got a controls upgrade. The estimated cost is $250,000. You have $150,000 in maximum reimbursement. So your project, the reimbursement from SB 1149 is either going to be that max reimbursement or the project costs. The Energy Trust plus the SB 1149 will never exceed 100% of the project cost. So in this case, Energy Trust offered $50,000 in incentive. So you maxed out at that 150,000 SB 1149 funding for a total of 200,000. And that was a net cost to the district of 50,000. So that's an idea of what that might look like. In terms of a lighting upgrade, so this is another example. Let's say the cost was $75,000, and then you have that max reimbursement of $150,000. But the Energy Trust incentive was $25,000, so you're only receiving SB 1149, $50,000 in SB 1149 here because you're capped at that cost at $75,000. The nice thing about this is that, if your costs go a little high, they run a little high once you're in construction. So let's say your final cost is $80,000. The Energy Trust incentive won't change. It'll stay at $25,000, but that SB 1149 piece can go up because you haven't maxed out your SB 1149. So you might get $80,000 total $55,000 in SB 1149, if that makes sense.
Okay, so before I go into this, is there any questions? Does anybody have, you want to unmute and ask any questions? We've got maybe a few more slides and then we'll have more time for questions at the end, but anything so far?
There's nothing in chat right now. I did add the link for the BPS.
BPS recording?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so we'll just go through the last few slides and then again, we'll have more time for questions at the end. But these are, again, some screenshots of communication that you'll either get from Energy Trust or from ODOE related to the 1149 program. Again, you're not going to be, you can't really read this, so don't worry about that. It's just to give you an example so that you know what you're kind of getting. Again, you've heard that reference to a funding summary from Christina. Again, basically that information that shows the example of that funding split and how it works, this is going to be provided to you in this first document. Again, once there has been like an energy study done, and any measures that were analyzed in there will be included on it with all the estimated cost, max reimbursement, energy trust incentive, all that stuff. So that way you can see all the information related to that project. And again, that's before the project moves forward. So you'll get that, this document typically from Energy Trust. The second document is the notice of measure eligibility. And this typically is just sent to you through email from ODOE, from Tracy or me. And it's usually for the lighting projects. There may be some of those prescriptive or standard measures like the boilers or some of those, but this is, again, very similar. It just provides you the energy savings that our program is using for that project, and to show that the measure is eligible, it's been entered. And then we have that second table that's essentially, again, the funding summary that gives you the dollars that are associated to those projects, so that, again, before you move forward with those projects, you have that information. Now, I will say some of those standard application projects, we don't typically get all that information to ODOE to review until typically the project's already done. So we do review the information, but again, that might come to you afterwards, just because, again, we're not getting it until the end. But okay. The next thing, this is a little bit newer. So some of you, maybe in the last year and a half, we've noticed, again, school district, we're getting a number of different grant funds for projects that may be overlapped with some energy projects. And so we've had to start doing this kind of extra verification. So once a project has been completed and we have received all the information from Energy Trust, we are sending this email back to the school district before we can finalize the 1149 funds to verify a couple things. Typically, it's just 3 things, sometimes maybe an extra thing in there, but we're trying to confirm, is the final cost that we were provided correct? And it's not necessarily that we're getting wrong information. It's just sometimes you guys may have additional costs that couldn't be included in the Energy Trust kind of process. So again, it's a chance to capture any of those additional costs. And then the second is to, again, confirm if there was any grant funds used on those projects. So again, if there was, we've had a number of school districts that, let's say, did a very large project at the school with a, and received a grant fund amount that was for inclusive of a number of things. Sometimes it's hard to narrow down to this specific project, but we can look at if the total grant was, let's say, 3 million, but the total projects at that site for that time period were maybe 4.5 million or something like that. Then you can send those amounts showing that, again, the difference between what you received in grant funds and what you paid out of pocket, so that we can kind of verify if any of that would overlay on those projects. And then Again, the last thing is really just to confirm if the district would like to claim 1149 funds. We do have a few districts that, again, for different reasons, or again, maybe after we look at grant funds, maybe it's fully covered under grant funds. So then the district is not requesting 1149 funds for the project. So we just like to make sure to ask those questions. So we do need to hear back from the school district from these items before we can process that 1149 funds. But once we have that, it goes pretty quickly after that. And this would be kind of that last communication where, again, everything's been reviewed. We've heard back from you on the other items that we need confirmation. We've entered the dollars and the projects in the database as being completed. And we're now sending you this email saying the district's now eligible to reimburse X dollars from your 1149 funds. And again, we use reimburse a lot, but again, most of the time it's a transfer for you guys. So again, just know that you're essentially transferring it out of the 1149 account that you have and moving it back to another account wherever you need to, either that paid for the project, or we do always typically recommend to keep it in a maintenance or facilities type budget or account so that that way you can kind of keep moving more projects forward. But I will say again, if we approve, like in this amount was just over 50,000, but if you only happen to have, let's say 20,000, then again, you're going to be responsible for tracking that remaining portion of that $30,485. Whether you do it a transfer once a year and kind of track that, or again, once a month, however you do it, you just need to track that you're only reimbursing the approved amount. And we do have another. Yes, so this is just another example to kind of show for those kind of projects that you're tracking those reimbursements. We do have a spreadsheet, or I use these spreadsheets. I refer to them as the balance of funds spreadsheets. And I have one for all the districts in 1149 territory, but essentially it helps me track like those revenues that come in from the utility versus these approved projects. So when ODOE approves a project, I add it to this expenditure column, and then it tracks that kind of ending balance. So in this scenario, I know school districts don't necessarily go negative in your accounts like that, but for me, this helps in a spreadsheet to view if we approved a higher amount than what you have, and then if you essentially can watch that amount as kind of trickle down as the revenues are received. But again, I know school districts, you guys might just do a transfer once a month, once a year, however, but this is a spreadsheet that can be used to do those that tracking for you. If you would like to use one, just reach out to me and let me know if you want a copy of the spreadsheet, or you can use another spreadsheet for yourself, or again, maybe it's adding some kind of comments into your accounting system that notes if you've been approved for a project and how much is remaining that you're still owed, something so that you can track that amount. As you guys mostly know, there's a lot of turnover in school districts, and there's a lot of situations where a school district is owed for a certain amount, and because of turnover, maybe they don't fully reimburse the amount that you're eligible for. Okay, so again, here's all of our contact information for all the folks involved. We will have, again, we'll be posting the recording on our website, and we will post this PowerPoint so you have access to all the contact information. But for now, is there any questions? I will go ahead and stop sharing, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
There's nothing in chat either.
It must be that quiet because people have heard this a number of times.
I have one question. Is there an
Yes.
actual list of all the lighting companies that are eligible that you can just go in and buy over the counter?
Yes, and I will send that, I'll put that in the link real quick here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Any other questions?
Do you guys have a list of firms or companies that would do small scale energy loans, and are those sometimes eligible for reimbursement through Senate Bill 1149?
So we don't necessarily have a list of companies that do small scale energy loans. But if you're doing a loan to do projects, again, that is something you can do. School districts have to pay for the projects, at least through 1149. You have to pay for them ahead of time. That is, because again, we're reimbursement. So if you do a loan, that's totally fine to do the loan but you have to continue working with us through the paperwork process. So again, working with Energy Trust to make sure that we identify which projects, the energy savings, and then again, at the end, we will, once everything's processed, we send you that approval once the projects are installed of how much you're eligible to reimburse. And it's good to keep an eye on that because if you're doing a loan, you've got a loan amount and monthly payments that you have to make, whereas sometimes there's costs that can be included in a loan, or maybe even projects that aren't approved through the program that are done. So you have to be aware of, again, kind of that approved amount versus what your monthly loan payment is. Because again, we've had some districts where the actual loan payment amount was higher each month, and then they essentially over reimburse themselves more than they were eligible for through the program. So then we have to figure out how to deal with that afterwards. So again, you just got to be careful with that and kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at the dollars. But loans are, yeah, you're allowed to do that if that's the option you guys want to go with. So any other questions? Yes, Maya.
Hi there.
Hi.
I have a BPS related question, so it might not be for this particular webinar. Should I ask it?
You can ask the question. I am not sure. I am not a BPS staff, but I am trying to help with some things, or at least I can point you in the right direction.
Oh,
So,
and that's probably what I'm looking for. So I submitted our Form Q, the energy professional form.
yeah.
And I keep getting kickbacks on the email. Is there a person or
Yeah, which email are you sending it to? Is it the BPS email?
Yes, and also the Berry, the incentive,
Mhm.
and it's not going through on that. So I didn't know if you had a contact specifically that maybe I've met a few people, through webinars, but I didn't know if they were the coordinators necessarily.
There's a few folks, Madeline, and then I'm spacing on his name right now. I will go ahead and send you the contacts for them, Maya.
Andrew,
Okay,
Andrew
thank you.
and Judy.
Yeah, there's a few different contacts. Again, most of the email communication, they do like it to go through the BPS email address because then they've got multiple people checking it. But they do have a couple people that are focused on BPS that, again, we can send you their contact information. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, Christina and I and Tracy and Colin, and I'm offering up Jennifer, even though she's not on here. We're always around to answer any questions. So again, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out because sometimes we can answer them a little faster than what, if you're trying to research things. So just let us know. And then again, Christina and I'm not sure about the rest of the folks, will be at the Oregon School Facility Managers Association conference in April as a vendor. So come by and say hello.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.